Some people say that you should drive an electric vehicle to save the planet. I'm here to tell you don't. It seems the world is awash with resto-mods these days. Cars that take the character, elegance and beauty of some of the automotive industry's greatest hits, and then they blend them with technology and the usability of the modern age. Some take the original shell and then cram in fantastic new hardware, such as brakes, suspension, engine, drivetrain, the lot. And the final result is something that feels suspiciously like witchcraft on wheels. Others only use the originals as a guiding inspiration, and they are built from the ground up using biblical materials such as carbon fibre and myrrh. And others are so far changed from the original icons that you might actually need an episode of Jeremy Kyle to figure out who the real father is. Now, one car that has received more of this generational transformation than any other is the Porsche 911. And for every fantastic new design, there seems to be a different strategy on how to build one. However, there is one thing that all of these cars have in common, and that is that they cost an utterly preposterous amount. So much so that you might actually think that the seller has taken complete leave of their senses, as they will be asking the kind of money that would usually only be reserved for that of saving a small nation from financial ruin. This little number from Rindt, however, is not only half the price of its main competitors, but I would even go as far as to say that this is better for the planet than buying a brand new electric vehicle. Named after Formula One's only uncrowned world champion, Jochen Rindt, Rindt Vehicle Designs are a marvellously peculiar British outfit. They take classic Porsches, mainly old 911s, and then restore them with the meticulous kind of care and attention usually reserved for antique Swiss watches, or even elderly Tibetan monks. Their design philosophy is beautifully simple. Don't ruin something that was already brilliant in the first place. And instead of stuffing their cars full of futuristic gadgetry or making it a carbon fibre circus act, what they do is focus on proper mechanical improvements, making the original design feel better, much tighter, and acting with far more civility. The final result is a car that still feels like a classic 911, but one that's had a proper night's sleep, a decent education, and has been built with intelligence rather than ego. It still keeps the original air-cooled 3.6 litre twin-spark flat six that you can hear wailing behind me. However, it's been rebuilt in-house to be sharper, more precise, a little bit more aggressive, and it now produces, near as makes no difference, 300 horsepower. The gearbox is a G40, used within the 964, and it's been rebuilt in-house by Rindt themselves again. Now, the wheel hasn't been reinvented, nor has it been altered. It's just been refreshed, made more precise, to add to that old school feeling when rolling up and down the box, and it's just a joy to drive. If you've never driven a classic 911, the pedal setup is very, very different. Instead of the clutch being connected up to the top of the bulkhead, it goes down and into the floor, and I never really understood it. But now I'm driving this car. Why you'd want to move away from this old school feeling, I have no clue, and I am so delighted that Rindt haven't. This is a proper driver's car because of that air-cooled engine, because of this pedal box, because of the gearbox. It's sensational. This car was originally built as a narrow-body recreation for a client. However, it was then brought back by Rindt and made more to my liking as a widebody, allowing for these glorious three-piece Fuchs wheels that are, well, now synonymous with Porsches of old. And whilst we're on the exterior, we might as well address the glaring obvious issue of calling this an RSR Restomod, because the car sold back in 1973 had a giant chin aperture down the front, allowing for cold air to flow over the oil cooler to stop the engine expiring in a very expensive cloud of smoke at the back. And at the back, we also had the now iconic ducktail spoiler, which allowed for a smidge more rear stability, but mainly a massive amount of dramatical theatre. And well, this car, well, it doesn't have either of those things. Rindt insists that having these RSR accoutrements and flourishes actually interrupts the smooth and rather balletic body lines of the classic 911. And as much as I'd love to see those bolted on for extra fanfare, Annoyingly, they're not wrong to do so. The handcrafted stainless steel prolapse exhaust is quite possibly my favourite feature on the car. Not only is it stunning to look at, but at low RPM, it's subtle, it's refined. And then when you start chasing the red line, it becomes exquisite, shouting and singing you at a decibel that would bring Shakespeare back from the dead. You want me to bring the noise? I'll bring the noise for you. Ready? So how is it made? Well, it starts life out as a 1990s 964 911. It's then taken back to Rindt, stripped down, and all of its secrets hidden away for the past 30 years are then revealed. It then heads over to their body shop, where it's sandblasted, the chassis corrected in places it needs to be, and all of the panels are then added from a much earlier 1970s 911. The parts are either sourced from Porsche themselves or built and fabricated in-house by Rindt's brilliant team of worker elves. And it's not just the body panels, but the entirety of the car, these seats retrimmed in-house, this gear stick, the gearbox, the steering wheel, the engine, it's all done in-house. And then, when the car is finished and built, it then needs to be painted. And when I say that I nearly fell off my seat when I found out how many coats of paint are on this car, I'm not joking. Because believe it or not, there are 11 coats of paint on the outside of this car. Not that you would be able to tell, given the now thick layer of mud on the outside. And whilst I'm sat in the interior, I might as well explain a little bit about it. You see, up front, we have a Momo Prototipo Black Edition steering wheel, and we also have a mahogany ball sat on top of our gear stick. Now, these are very classical for a Porsche 911 Restomod build. These seats are rather tame compared to its competitors. There's no dogtooth, herringbone, or patterns galore. They are quite simply just leather with a lovely bit of Alcantara. Now, historically, I would have said that I want a bit more garishness, but after sitting in it for 300 miles, I think it's rather adorable. We've then got the classic dials up here with the rev gauge sat right in front of you, telling when the optimum time is to shift. We've then got our oil gauges, our fuel. We've got everything that we need and nothing more. Speaking of which, we have what looks to be an original 1990s plow punk stereo. However, it has been upgraded with some lovely modern touches, such as Bluetooth connectivity, so you can actually listen to your own tunes. Not that I'd suggest you do that, because what's hidden behind you sounds way more poetic. This is a driver's car, and I absolutely love it. Let's get down to the meat of this sandwich, shall we? What is this thing actually like to drive? Don't get me wrong, it is still a classic 911, so the front end does feel as if it's a little bit light and then it doesn't know what it's doing until you get used to it, and then you can really fling it at the car, and the feel between the steering wheel and the front axle is genuinely insane. You sit low down and in the car, and visibility is utterly excellent. But the thing that changes it from a classic 911 is all of the clever engineering that Rindt have done underneath. Usually when you drive an older classic car, there's constant knocks and bangs and creaks in the bodywork, but there's absolutely none of that here. The suspension has been played with so that all of the bumps, you can feel them, but they're not painful. A long drive doesn't feel tiresome. But then again, it's a little bit like a Mini on a long drive because everything's kind of off-centered to the left. But I genuinely love it. The tyres at the back, where they have been widened, you have an obscene amount of grip. The clutch, okay, it's slightly heavy and it's a bit of an on-off trigger, and you've got to get used to the fact that it goes down and onto the floor, but that's all part of the 911 feeling. The throw to third might be a little bit long, but it's just part of the car's character. The steering wheel gives you so much sensation, and because it's a classic 911 underneath, it's not a bajillion miles wide, so you can enjoy B-roads. You can run down them without thinking, oh God, there's a truck coming the other way, as you suddenly smash into the front of it, pretending you're a pheasant. Inside of the car, there's not 1,000,001 things for you to get distracted by. You are here to do one thing when you're behind the wheel of this car, and that's drive it and enjoy it. And I just want to enjoy it every single time. I mean, just listen to that exhaust, just, oh. The one thing I will say about this car is it does not like to cruise. It doesn't like to be too low down the revs. It really prefers being above 2,000 RPM. As I'm currently at 2,000, put your foot down, there's a little bit of a delay. What it really wants is it wants you to kick it down, go down into third, and then accelerate up. It encourages you to drive, and drive hard. With its 300 brake horsepower, this car is genuinely usable. It doesn't feel terrifying. When you rev it out, it's not exactly as if you're holding on for dear life. No, you're actually having fun. And when was the last time you were able to have fun in a modern supercar? They're all utterly terrifying on the roads. If you hit a pothole, you'll be speared off into a local tree or end up shaking hands with a cow. With this, you know that you can put your foot down and it's manageable and that you're not going to become part of the scenery. It's just amazing. A 911 was always the usable supercar, and this feels like it still is usable. Even more so still. I would have this over a modern 911. Even though the modern 911 is probably easier to live with, I don't care because it's not as analog as this. And that is what we want this car to be. Analog, raw, and exciting. Choosing a Restomod over a brand new EV is rather like deciding to keep your bespoke, tailor-made Savile suit, albeit from when you were much slimmer, compared to trading it in for a brand new piece of beige leatherware designed by the experts. The Porsche already exists, which means the carbon has already been spent. So picking it isn't just the sensible option, it's practically an act of environmental heroism. And when you compare that to building a brand new electronical vehicle, which involves enough mining, smelting, transportation and industrial faffing about, it'll even make the most purple-haired of granola-eating Just Stop Oil protester realize they aren't all that sustainable. Yes, the Porsche still burns petrol. It rattles, it grumbles, and it even has the audacity to even exist loudly, which is inevitably going to upset your neighbours, dogs, and anybody whose idea of excitement is alphabetizing their tofu. But when you compare this to the monstrous industrial impact that building a new EV has, with a battery that weighs half the weight of this car and enough rare earth minerals inside it for you to open your own little chemistry set, the Porsche is essentially a debutante tippy-toeing around and humming a little tune, upsetting absolutely nobody. So no, this car won't single-handedly save the polar bears. And in a world obsessed with replacing everything every 5 minutes, the Restomod approach is gloriously and wonderfully British. Keep the fantastic thing you already have. Make it more fantastic and enjoy it loudly and unapologetically. So let's talk about the rather sizable elephant in the room, shall we? Price. Because in the 964 Restomod world, things become incredibly unhinged very quickly. Now at the top of the tree we have Singer and Tuthill, and they can cost anywhere from £500,000 to £2.5 million for what is essentially an old Porsche. Now don't get me wrong, these are fabulous machines, engineered beyond anything in comparison. But they are priced rather like commissioned pieces of art rather than cars that you can casually drive to lunch. And the reason being is because of decades of brand gravity, motorsport lineage, and the fact that when you pull up to a petrol station, every onlooker is going to nod knowingly. Which is why Rindt has taken a refreshingly different approach. They haven't tried to outsing Singer, nor have they tried to keep pace with Tuthill's four-bore competition ethos. What they've done rather is focus on what truly matters when you're behind the wheel. Mechanical honesty, the feel that you get, and how you feel inside when you drive it. Don't get me wrong, this car still feels meticulously engineered, like an expensive product, but it doesn't feel like you've tried to finance a small little moonshot. And at £250,000 to £400,000, this car has to be the bargain of the century. Kinda. But Let's be honest, there are drawbacks to owning a car such as this. It's about as practical as wearing a tuxedo to move house. You're never going to be able to fit a set of golf bats in it, not unless you open the window and start feeding them in iron by iron. And every time you take the car out, you're going to be forever worried that you're going to curb the wheels or somebody's going to introduce their shopping trolley to your door in a mild case of violence at the local supermarché. These wing mirrors are an utter insult. I have a clearer view of the final result of the 26 Football World Cup than I do of the car that I've just overtaken them. You have to think of them of less rear viewing and more philosophical suggestion. And if the weather dares to be even slightly British, an introduction of mild damp, a bit of precipitation in the air, you're going to spend more time at the car wash cleaning it than you are inside it. And here's the thing with all of that criticism. I do not care in the slightest. I absolutely adore this. It's given me an appreciation, a spiritual appreciation, if you will, of how a proper 911 should feel. The feel I get through my fingertips, how this car rolls down the road. And quite frankly, all of that nonsense is perfectly worthwhile when you have a grin on your face like this. And that is what this car is all about. It's not about lap times, it's not about the numbers on the dyno, and it's certainly not about the number of zeros at the end of the invoice. The Rindt 964 RSR Restomod isn't trying to reinvent the 911, nor is it trying to lecture you about the future of mobility. What it's done is take simply one of the greatest driver's cars ever made, and with beautiful engineering and a massive amount of self-restraint, has just made it better. Better to drive, better to live with, and better at reminding you of why we all fell in love with these things in the first place. There's no hysteria, no carbon fibre chest beating. It's just thoughtful engineering and a respect for the original icon. When you drive it, that respect is palpable. The steering feels like an old friend who knows when to joke but when to shut up. The engine, it doesn't shout, it sings. Oh, it rises and falls theatrically, with a flourish almost. It makes an okay road feel like an event, but it makes a good road feel like a private performance just for you. You'll find yourself going out for no good reason, inventing errands. It's absolutely fabulous. It makes every mile feel like it needs to be savoured, not just consumed. So no, this car will not save the planet, cure modern motoring, or make you a better person. However, it will make you happier, and that truly matters. In a world where everybody is obsessed with upgrading, replacing and sanitizing everything until it's completely devoid of character, the Rindt 964 RSR stands out, separates itself from everything else, slightly sideways, and doesn't try to change the fact that it's deeply human. It's a love letter to driving, written in petrol, oil and good taste. And quite frankly, I cannot think of a better way to end this video. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fabulous day, and as you were. Can someone give me £250,000 so I can buy this thing?